Welcome to Frontlines. We welcome our viewers from across the United States and Canada, from Europe and the Middle East, Australia and South America, and of course, from Armenia and Artsakh. When we left you last, we were in the third part of our four-part series documenting our fact-finding mission with Arman Tatoyan to Syunik in the south of Armenia, where we had visited the villages of Borodan, of Shurnukh, Nedkinhand, the last, of course, being surrounded on three sides by Azerbaijani forces inside sovereign Armenian territory. Today, we're going to be continuing this four-part series with our last installment. And then actually, we have guests joining us today as well for a discussion afterwards. Garo, would you please introduce our fourth episode as well as the guest that we have today with us?
Thank you, Karnig. Good evening, everyone in the United States, and good morning, everyone in Armenia and Artsakh. Բարի երեկո սիրելի հայրենակիցներ, Միացյալ Նահանգներու մեջ եւ բարի լույս Հայաստանի եւ Արցախի մեջ եւ համայն Սփյուռքի մեջ. We are very pleased to have with us the critical participants on our fact-finding mission that we undertook with the direction and guidance of Tatoyan Foundation's very own Arman Tatoyan, who is joining us for our fourth and final segment at the moment, along with three gentlemen who played very critical roles in the fact-finding mission that we undertook. They are Dr. Roshin Pirumian, who provided us with many of his expertise in terms of the geolocations, mapping, and things of that nature. Patrick Pulatian, who has been the single most individual who has done all of our video and photographic evidence gathering, and Ruben Mushegyan, who undertook the treacherous task, if you will, of navigating through all of the alternative roads that we were forced to travel on, and saw to it that we got from point A to point B on time. If you can consider traveling a 15-minute distance, 2 hours to get there, he certainly accomplished it despite all of the challenges along the way. I want to particularly thank these three gentlemen who took the trip with us to the outskirts of every Syunik village and region and school and every road that we stopped and engaged in our fact-finding. And we could not have done it without the help of these three folks. And I am eternally, as is Karnig, grateful for their contribution. With that, I would like to also return to the person that made it all possible, Arman Tatoyan, who for a year and a half, 2 years and more, has been bringing all of our attention to the crises in the region, but one cannot really put their arms around it, get a real grasp of it until one goes there. I was very disheartened to read many of the ridiculous comments on our announcement leading up to this evening's program. Comments by, I don't know if they are fake profiles on social media or they're real people, because it would be even more sadder, if you will, that people think that there's nothing to it. I invite those people, I invite all skeptics to take the journey to Syunik and to see for themselves what it is that we are talking about when we talk about peace, but we have people who are looking at pieces of machinery, machine guns and weapons staring down at them inside Armenia territory. Arman Tatoyan, thank you very much for joining us. If you have any remarks, please do so. We are after Arman Tatoyan's remarks. We're going to show you our last portion, which will be a brief discourse and dialogue with the community leader, the governor, the mayor of the region of Gapan, and thereafter we're going to conclude our four-part series by showing you our final stop at Kapan Airport. I invite you to remain for the 20 minutes or so of the footage, after which we will come back for some final remarks. Thank you. Arman?
Yes, Garojan, Karnig, thank you very much for this very important portion of the Frontlines. And as you very rightly said, this mission to Syunik was very special because we had the honor to have you, Mr. Ghazarian, Karnig, Kerkonian, the professionals, dedicated professionals who have been with us throughout the entire war, after the war, and each and every time when we were experiencing problems, helping not only with English materials in English language, but helping with analysis, research, submitting them to international instances, judicial instances, and with also accurate recommendations. We were very honored this time to have also with us Mr. Oshin Pirumian, Ruben Musherian, and Patrick Polatyan. So these three professionals were indeed, we were blessed to have them because with their help, we could identify very correctly Azeri locations. We could identify the exact problems that they caused to our civilian population and to our country. And I think this is the greatest team that now is working. I want our viewers to know that all of us now are working on a special report that will be introduced very soon. It is composed, of course, it will be in English language, and it will be provided to international organizations, to embassies, governments, and of course, it is also will be available to be used by Armenian parliament, government, or any other actor. Thank you very much, Garojan.
Thank you, Arman. And just so that our viewers know, the intention is that once we show the video, we'll be coming back for a short discussion regarding what we've just seen and our reflections on this very important fact-finding mission that was undertaken. And to bring people back to where we were, the video starts and we are back in Nerkin Hand. If you remember from our third episode, we had interviewed the head of the community, the head of the village of Nerkin Hand, who was telling us about the cemeteries that he can't visit anymore, and actually pointing out to us the various Azerbaijani posts that were in the slopes of the mountains surrounding Nerkin Hand on three sides. So with that, I'm inviting you into our fourth episode here, and we will be back after that to continue our discussion. Welcome back to Frontlines. We'd like to welcome our viewers, of course, from across the United States and Canada, from Europe and the Middle East, and of course in Armenia and Artsakh. As you know, we have been traveling through Syunik and various important places to gather information and try to get a real understanding of where we are. Garo, if you would, please introduce for us where we are at this moment, why we're here, and who's with us today.
Sure. Բարեսիրելի հայրենակիցներ, Միացյալ Նահանգներ, Եվրոպա, Միջին Արևելք եւ Հարավային Ամերիկա եւ ամենակարևորը Հայաստան եւ Արցախ։ Այսօր մենք կգտնվենք մեր առաքելության հատվածներեն Ներքին Հանդ գյուղի մեջ, մեր դարբեր տարածաշրջան, գհիշեք անցյալին խոսացինք գյուղաբեդի հետ, բայց այսօր արիթ ունենք ունենալու համայնքաբեդը մեր հետ, Կապանի համայնքաբեդը բարոն Փարսյանը, Ցախին եւ ինչու՞ չէ մեր առաջնորդող ուղեկցող Arman Tatoyանը Tatoyan հիմնադրամին։ Բարոն Փարսյան, շնորհակալ ենք այս արիթի համար, որ դրամատրած եք եւ ուղեկցած եք մեր հետ, ցույց տալու համար մեզի Կապանի համայնքի իրավիճակը, դարբեր գյուղերու դրությունը, անվտանգության առումով փաստողումները, այլընտրանքային ճանապարհի դժվարությունները եւ կցանկանայինք այս պահուն բարոն Tatoyani նշած այդ մտահոգությունները, որ մենք կհետևենք այս մի քանի օրերուն, արձագանքեք այդ առումով։ Բարոն Tatoyan, ինչ կխորիկ։
Երևի բարոն Փարսյանը
շատ բարի։
Ինչպես նկատեցիք սեպտեմբերի 13-ին կրկին անգամ ադրբեջանական կողմից անձազերծած ագրեսիայի հետևանքով Կապան համայնքում բավականին լուրջ համատանգային այնպես իրավիճակ է առաջացել, հատկապես որոշ մեր գյուղական բնակավայրերի համար շատ լուրջ համատանգային խնդիր է առաջացել մեր ներքին բնակավայրի եւ Սրաշեն գյուղական բնակավայրի համար։ Ներքին հանդը կարելի է ասել երեք կողմից շրջապատված է թշնամիների կողմից ամբողջովին, գրեթե ամբողջովին զրկված է կենսական նշանակություն ունեցող իր գյուղի համար, գյուղացիների համար ռեսուրսներից, բոլոր արոտավայրերից, խոթարքերից, վայելահողերից, նույնիսկ զրկված է խմելու ջրի հնարավորությունից, այսօրվա դրությամբ շատ մեծ խնդիր է առաջացել գերեզմանոցի հետ կապված, նույնպես գտնվում է թշնամու վերահսկողության ներքո, ներքին հատվածում, վարչական հատվածում 2700 հեկտար հողատարած օկուպացված է ներկայությամբ թշնամու կողմից եւ հարյուրավոր հեկտարներ կենսական նշանակություն հողատարածքներ գտնվում են միջդիրքային հատվածում, որ արդեն անհնար է, գրեթե անհնար է այդ հողատարածքները մշակելու, օգտագործելու համար գյուղացիների կողմից։ Նույն դրանից մի քիչ կարելի ասել ավելի թեթև վիճակ է Սրաշենի հատվածում, էլի բազմաթիվ հողատարածքներ, մեծ մակերեսներ հողատարածքներ հայտնվել են միջդիրքային հատվածում, նույնպես գյուղացիների համար օգտագործելու հնարավորությունից զրկված։ Մենք նախկինում էլ իհարկե նման խնդիրներ ունեինք 20 թվականի սանձազերծած ուրեմն պատերազմից հետո, բայց սեպտեմբերի 13-ի ագրեսիայից հետո խնդիրները ավելի են լրջացել ու գյուղացիների համար նվազագույն լուրջ սոցիալական խնդիրներ են առաջացել, հատկապես այս հատվածում։ Մենք եկանք M17 ճանապարհահատվածով, դուք տեսաք, որ M17-ը գրեթե ամբողջությամբ թիրախավորվում է թշնամու կողմից եւ գտնվում է թշնամու դիտարկման ներքո։ M17-ը սեպտեմբերի 17-ին գրեթե անանցանելի է դարձել, քանի որ թիրախավորում երկրում էր կրակահերթի տակ գտնվում 17-ը եւ մեր կողմից գրեթե հնարավոր չէր օգտագործել ճանապարհը, այսինքն կոնկրետ 13-ին 14-ին տվյալ գյուղական բնակավայրեր, այսինքն Ճակատեն, Շիկահող, Սրաշեն, Ներքին Հանդ, Ծավ ուղղությունները մեկուսացված վիճակում էին։
Հիմա որ բարոն համայնքապետ, հիմա որ ինչպես նշեցիք, Սրաշենը թեգուզ մի քիչ թեթև ոչ այդքան ներքին հանդ, բայց այդ բոլոր դեղերից որ դուք մեզ առաջնորդեցիք եւ մենք նկատեցինք, միանշանակ ակնհայտ է, որ ապրելու ցև չի սա, այսինքն վտանգության առումով ժողովրդի հոգեգանը ճանապարհը մեքենայով կամ ոտով քայլել ինչ կնշանակի, երբ որ ուսի վերևը թշնամի բանակայինը զենքը թիրախավորած է քո վրա։ Չեք խորիր, որ այս իրավիճակի մեկ ելքը ոչ թե այս այլընտրանքային ճանապարհներն է կառուցել, որոնք այդքան էլ չեն դարբերում այն ճանապարհներից, որ հիմա փակ է մեր դիմաց, մեր ժողովրդի դիմաց, այլ իսկական ելքը այս ներխուժած մարդկանց զորքին հերացնելն է այս տարածքներից, այս հայաստանյան տարածքը մենք ֆիքսում ենք բարոն Թատոյանի հետ, եւ բարոն Թատոյանը ինքը կարող է վկայի ավելի ճշգրտորեն, որ նույնիսկ Ադրբեջան-Հայաստան սահմանի այս կողմը, ինչպես նշեցիք, դուք հազարավոր հեկտարներ։
Այո, դուք իրավացի եք, նման կերպ իհարկե նման վիճակում պարզապես ապրելը ժամանակի ընթացքում դառնալու է անհնար եւ իրավացիորեն նշում եք, որ լուծման ճանապարհը դա Ադրբեջանի զորքերի հետ քաշումն է, հեռացումը այստեղից, հեռացումն է եւ այդ պարագայում կվերականգնվի բնականոն կյանքը այս հատվածում։
Այստեղ ես մի կարևոր բան ուզում եմ շեշտադրել։ Պարոն Փարսյանը հստակ ամեն ինչ ներկայացրեց իրականում ինչ խնդիրներ են առաջ եկել եւ ինքներս էլ ուսումնասիրեցինք։ Մենք այստեղ երկու իրավիճակ ունենք։ Առաջինը այս առավել վտանգավոր ներխուժումները իհարկե Հայաստանի Հանրապետության տարածք, որտեղ ադրբեջանական զինված անօրինական տեղակայումներն են, տեսնում ենք ամբողջությամբ խաթարել են մեր բնակչության կյանքը, անհնարինության վերածել կյանքի համարվող սպառնալիքով։ Բայց հարցն նաև այն է, անգամ երբ նրանք մինչև այս ներխուժումները մեր գյուղերի հարևանությամբ էին հայտնվել, արդեն լրջագույն խնդիրեր եւ արդեն նրանք կյանքի ու անվտանգությունը խաթարել էին մեր բնակիչների, որովհետև անգամ երբ նրանց տեղակայման վայրերին մարդիկ անգամ մինչև 500 մետր ուսկ ավել չէին կարողանում մոտենալ իրենց արոտավայրերին, խոթարկներին, այն տարածքից, որտեղ նրանք էին ներկա, որովհետև կրակոցներ էին արձակում, անգամ երեխաների վրա, անգամ սովորական քաղաքացիական բնակիչների վրա։ Հետևաբար, այստեղ միակ այո ելքը նրանց հեռացումն է եւ հիմնավորումը շատ հստակ է, որպեսզի մարդկանց կյանքը վերականգնվի, ազատ տեղաշարժը, սեփականությունը, անվտանգությունը, մասնավոր կյանքը մենք ունենք անգամ որոտանում տեղ, որտեղ տեսախցիկներով տների մեջ են նստած, այստեղ արանքել են, այստեղ այս վայրերում են դիտարկվում։ Եվ ի վերջո նաև անվտանգությունը, հետևաբար եւ ես նաև ուզում եմ ասել, որ միջազգային կանոնների համաձայն սա է միակ ելքը։ Այսինքն մենք այս փաստերը պետք է ճիշտ կարողանանք օգտագործել, որ միջազգային դատական ակցիաները մյուս վայրերում մենք կարողանանք հիմնավորել, որովհետեւ սրանք նրանց ընդունած կանոններն են, որ հստակ գործում են նաև։ Մեր պարագայում էլ մենք պետք է դրանից օգտվենք։
So I think just to really sum up to our guests who perhaps don't understand Armenian exactly what was some of the main points that we've discussed here. As was discussed, the M17 highway that brought us to where we are was under constant targeting by Azeri military posts. In fact, as we're standing here today, quite frankly, you could actually look over the shoulders of each of us standing in this semicircle, and you can see military posts. I don't know if you can see it over Dr. Tatoyan's head right now, but there is an Azeri flag halfway up that hill. Over Garo's shoulder, over his left shoulder, there's the military post where we observe soldiers coming in and coming out. And one of the main points that was discussed by the leadership here is that the idea of normal life cannot be restored here under these circumstances. And as Dr. Tatoyan mentioned, and quite frankly, Arman, this is an idea that you had brought up right at the end of the war in 2020. When I say the end of the war, I put those in quotation marks, and that's the idea of a humanitarian belt to push the Azeri military back from these villages, because one of the major points of demarcation and delimitation of borders is to not disturb the life of the actual civilians that live there, and we have that situation clearly happening in the open here. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Garo to have a couple of final words.
Thank you, Karnig. Ուզեմ շնորհակալություն հայտնել սիրելի դոկտոր Arman Tatoyanին, հարգարժան բարոն Փարսյանին, այս համայնքաբեդը, այս կապան հայկական աշխարհի, եւ գուզեմ ասել հետեւյալը. այն նախատասությունը, որ մենք կսենք, մենք ենք դերը մեր երկրի, այդ մեկը նախատասություն է ըստ երևույթի, նամանավանդ Երևանի մեջ, ես այդպես կդգադեմ, այդպես կգնահատեմ, բայց այդ մեկը ապրում է այստեղ Կապանի համայնքի մեջ, այստեղ ներքին Հանդ գյուղի մեջ եւ այդ բոլոր գյուղերը, որ մենք այցելեցինք, շրջանները, որով այստեղ իսկապես բարոն Փարսյանի նմանները, բարոն Գյուղաբեդի նմանները դերերն են մեր երկրի, բայց մենք մեկ բառով կրնամ ես ամփոփել մեր իրավիճակը, մեր ազգովի իրավիճակը, մենք անդարբեր ենք դժբախտաբար եւ ժամանակը վաղուց անցել է, որ այդ անդարբերությունը բաց թողենք, մերգանանք այդ անդարբերությունից եւ հասկանանք, որ եթե մենք չունենանք այս անվտանգությունը նորից ներքին հանդի մեջ, վաղը կունենանք այս անվտանգության խախտումը եւ վտանգը Սևանալիջում եւ ինչու՞ չէ Երևանում եւ հայրենագիցներ Սփյուռքի մեջ, Հայաստանի մեջ եւ այլուր չխորինք, որ Թշնամին հերույ է։ Թշնամին, ինչպես որ Karnigը նշեց, մեր ուսերի յետև 100 մետր հեռավորությամբ, եթե ոչ ավելի պակաս, ներկա է։ Ներկա է, որովհետև մենք ազգովի անդարբեր ենք։ Խաղաղությունը բոլորիս համար արժեքավոր իմաստ ունի, բայց խաղաղությունը չպետք է լինի իքին մարդկանց հանգստության, իքին մարդկանց առօրյա ապրուստի, ապրելակերպի խանգարման։ Խնդրեմ, նկատի ունենանք, որ երբ մենք կայցելենք Հայաստան, այցելենք մարզերը, երբ մենք կմտահոգվենք Արցախով, հասկանանք, որ այդ Արցախի մեր մտահոգությունը ըստ երևույթի բավարար չէր, որովհետև այնպես որ Արցախը վտանգվեց, ահա վասիկ ունեցանք այնինչը, որ մենք չպետք է ունենայինք։ Կապանը վտանգվեց, Syunikի մարզը վտանգվեց եւ ժամանակն է, որ մենք հասկանանք իսկական խաղաղության համար մենք պետք է պայքարենք իրավունքի ճանապարհով, իրավական առումով եւ ինչու՞ չէ դիվանագիտական առումով, սակայն ոչ թե միայն խոսքերով, այլ գործով։ Շնորհակալ եմ ձեր գործի համար, պարոն Պարսյան, պարոն Tatoyan, Karnig, as always. We will see you again from the front lines on Frontlines.
Welcome back to Frontlines. Welcome back to Frontlines. We're actually at the airport right now in Syunik, at the Syunik airport. We are driving by, and I have to say it's quite a situation. We're literally standing just a few meters away from the actual runway. Garo, I mean, I don't know how to describe this. Maybe
it's surreal. It's very surreal because the runway is right there, and on the other side of the runway is the Azeri army. The Azeri army with many posts. With a great deal of numbers in terms of soldiers, as we understand from sources on the ground, and it's utter silence here. Utter silence at the Kapan airport in the Syunik region. Essentially, just putting a complete halt to all movement, all freedom of movement. That is a basic human right. To provide for necessities, to get around, and to thrive in a community that deserves to thrive. Այս քաղաքը, այս քաղաքը, այս մարզը ունի նույն իրավունքները միջազգային, ինչպես որ գոյություն ունեն ամեն դեղ աշխարհով 4 անկյուններով մեկ, բայց ավասիկ այս օտագայանը մետրեր անթին ներկայացած են Ադրբեջանի բանակայիններ, թիվերով, դրոշակներով եւ կենտրոնացված իրենց հիմքերով եւ պարալիզացած են վերջապես, անդամալուծացած են այս օտագայանը եւ շրջակա քաղաքի եւ մարզի բնակչության ազատ շարժումի իրավունքը եւ մարդու ապրելակերպի որակավոր Արիթը։ Չգիտեմ Արման ջան, բարոն Tatoyan, դուք ասեք, այս ինչ բան է։
Հիմա մենք կարողանում ենք տեսնել, որ ադրբեջանական զինված ծառայողները նաև ներկա են բառացի Syunik, Կապանի Syunik օդանավակայանի թռիչքուղիների վրա։ Թռիչքուղիների վրա ներկա են, նրանք ունեն իհարկե այստեղ զինված խմբավորումներ եւ բնականաբար ոչ միայն արգելում են կամ խոչընդոտ են օդանավակայանը շահագործելու համար, բայց ամենակարևորը Կապան քաղաքի քաղաքացիական բնակչության կյանքի ու առողջության համար անվտանգությունը ամբողջությամբ խաթարում։ Եվ նրանք ակնհայտ է, որ այստեղ ունեն նաև մենք տեսանք նաև տեսախցիկներ, որոնցով կարողանում են ոչ միայն վերահսկել տարածքը, այլ նաև շրջակա վայրերը, եւ դրանից բացի, եթե մենք վերցնում ենք նաև նրանց այս վերևի դիրքերում նրանց տեղակայումը, դա նաև գերակա հնարավորություն է տալիս անվտանգությունը առավել խաթարող դիրքեր են մեր քաղաքի ամբողջ քաղաքի համար։ Սա ակնհայտ է, որ սա հանցավոր ներկայություն է եւ ակնհայտ է, որ միջազգային թե դատական ակցիաների, թե նաեւ միջազգային կառույցները պետք է այս փաստերի հիման վրա միջոցներ ձեռնարկեն այս հարցերը լուծելու եւ ճանաչելու համար այն ադրբեջանական ագրեսիան, որ տեղի է ունենում, որովհետեւ նրանց ագրեսիան նույն սեպտեմբերի 13-ին եւ 14-ին որ տեղի ունեցավ ներքին հանդի նկատմամբ
վայոց ձորի ջերմուկի եւ այլն, այս դիրքերից էր։ Այն վայրերից էր նաեւ, որ նրանք ոչ միայն ներկա են անօրինական մեր գյուղերի հարևանությամբ, նաեւ ներխուժել են մեր տարածքները։
It's amazing. I mean, we're standing, it's a civilian airport.
Սա նաեւ ներողություն եմ խնդրում Գարնիկ ջան, սա նաեւ նրանք սրանով կտրում են կոմունիկացիան, պատկերացեք օդանավակայանը որքան կարևոր է։ Ճանապարհ առանց այն էլ այլընտրանքային ճանապարհով ենք այսօր ենթևեկում դեպի Գորիս եւ Երևան, որովհետեւ նրանք եկել են Կապան, Գորիս Կապան ճանապարհը արգելափակել են Որոտանի հատվածում, մենք միասին տեսանք։ Դրա պատճառով ստիպված մենք այլընտրանքային ճանապարհով ենք երթևեկում, որը ել ավելի է դժվարացնում կապը Երևանի հետ արտաքին աշխարհի հետ, որը կարող էր կոմպենսացվել Syunik օդանավակայանի հաշվին, եւ նա տեսեք նրանք նաեւ սա էլ են խոչընդոտ ստեղծում։
We're clearly in a situation where it's a choking feeling, right?
You're supposed to be in a sovereign country, but you feel anything but sovereign. You're supposed to be in a free, independent Republic of Armenia, and you feel anything other than free, and certainly not independent, because you are, at this moment, at a minimum at this airport, you are dependent on the whims of an invading army personnel at every mountaintop across the runway, up and down the runway. This is unacceptable, unbelievable, and intolerable, quite frankly. We will have a special edition following all of our observations, Karnig, to discuss at length the ramifications, the legal implications, and the humanitarian developments and the crises that are born out of these unbelievable circumstances. I don't know what kind of a peace people are talking about, but this does not represent peace, and this does not certainly shed light or fuel hope for any kind of peace. If this is what peace is, this is not a peace. This is no peace.
Well, Dr. Tatoyan, thank you for pointing this out as well. I mean, it's amazing that near every corner we have yet another incident where there are significant compromises to the security of the Armenian people and Armenia itself. Please continue to follow us on Frontlines.
Well, we'd like to welcome everybody back. That was quite telling, and I have to say, reflecting on it, I feel as if the reality of the insecurity situation is only compounded. Many of the locations we went to, the situation had gotten pronouncedly worse in September. You heard that a number of times, that these were positions, they moved to these additional strategic positions in September of this year. And it's funny that since our return, Aliyev has spoken of directly to the government of Armenia, telling them that that we have taken strategic heights, and what that means, I guess, were the words that he had uttered. Perhaps we should open up the discussion and get some impressions with our guests that accompanied us on this mission, which really is still very fresh in all of our minds. And I think that the video brings back quite a lot of memories and fears, apprehensions as to what the future holds. Garo? I think you're muted, Garo.
I have seen this footage and many other clips that we are not showing to our audience for very obvious reasons, chief among them security reasons, so as not to compromise any Armenian defensive positions, if you will. But what is disturbing to me is that it seems to me that the Armenian universe is deaf and blind to what's been going on to this very minute. I cannot get it out of my head, the young boys, the teenagers that we saw in some of these villages, some of whom had machine guns in hand. And that's no way to live in one's own village, one's own country, to be staring at foreign army, foreign government flags and army posts. I guess I want to pose a question to my dear friend Oshin, who has gone to Syunik many times over the years, because I hadn't. And to me, when I was there, I only saw what I now see, which is littered by invading army posts on the side of the roads, at the outskirts, adjacent to villages, overlooking schools, you name it, we saw it. Well, it wasn't like that a couple of years ago, right? So what about the quality of life? I mean, we were in those cities. We were in Gapan, we were in Goris, we were in the villages of Sarashen, Jagaden, Nerkinhand, Shurnuch. These villages, I mean, those folks are the true heroes of our 21st century Armenian nation, if you will. They really are. Որովհետև ինչպես կսեք գարչած են հողին եւ չեն մեկնիր եւ Աստված գիտե իրենց ճակատագիրը ինչ է մեկ ժամեն մույսը. It wasn't like that, was it? You've lived there for a number of years, Oshin.
No, Garo, it wasn't. So the trip was a lot of mixed emotions for me because, like you said, I've taken the trip to Kapan many times, and this time it was actually an ordeal to get to Kapan. I mean, the so-called alternate road makes you take a very circuitous, route from point A to point B, which wasn't the case 2 years ago. So putting aside everything else that is happening, all the humanitarian issues, I think one of the major problems is that all the different roads that we were on were basically either under Azeri control, so we couldn't go on them, or they were under Azeri control by having the high ground, meaning whenever they wanted to, they can basically stop all traffic on those roads. And I think that's the biggest difference if you remember, when we went to Shurnuch, there were actually two signs, one on the left side of the road going into the village, which was in Armenian, and on the left side of the road, right side was Armenian, left side was in Turkish, was in, same village, but two different languages. And it was just surreal. I'll hold other comments, but to answer your question, it felt very different and very foreign.
And I think Arman brought up a good point while we were watching the footage at the airport, and about the fact that the value of these transportation links, right, or the danger that it exposes Syunik to, in terms of cutting them off, as Arman said, from Yerevan and then from the rest of the world. And I'm reflecting on the view from the airport, and the events. For example, the shooting of the ambulance, what we had showed in a previous episode where that shooting had taken place. What Oshin mentions of the high ground. I want to shift over to Ruben for a quick question. You actually navigated those roads, these alternative roads, up and down the hills, and that was, several weeks ago now. The weather has changed. What were your impressions about the navigability of those roads, number one? And then number two, in emergency situations, if airplanes can't get up, airplanes or helicopters can't get up and take off from the airport because of what Azerbaijan considers Azerbaijani airspace, and ambulances are getting shot on the roads, what are we talking about in terms of the ability to get emergency vehicles through these roads to these villages? So that's the second part of my question, Ruben.
Thank you, Karnig. It's really hard to explain until you've seen it with your own eyes. It's just undoable. It's unimaginable as to how difficult it would be to get someone emergency help in the event something were to happen. It's not that it's difficult, it's undoable. Now, when we were there, luckily the weather held out pretty well. And yet still there were parts of that road where we were actually driving through streams of water. There was a few instances of that. The road was extremely rough. I can't imagine how those vehicles can get through there when it is, in fact, raining and snowing and muddy. And they're completely cut off from the world in every aspect, whether it's emergency medical care or whether it's simple trying to get your daily necessities to be able to live.
Go ahead. Ruben.
Go ahead, Garo.
I wanted to ask you, Ruben, in one village, if you remember the village of Gorodan, when we were in a home, and the home just a bit away was occupied by Azeri soldiers, and they were looking at us with binoculars, even though we could see them without binoculars. It was that close. I saw you spend some time talking to the gentleman on the side, quite a bit of time, and I think they hosted you with pomegranate, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
What can you recall about their spirit and their general disposition under those conditions? Because I found them to be rather uncharacteristically calm, whereas by all accounts it was a very nerve-wracking place to be. For me, it was.
Absolutely. Like I said, you have to be there to really feel it and understand what these people are going through. However, I guess it's human nature that after a certain period of time, you adapt to your environment.
Mm-hmm.
You and I and most people out here could never even comprehend living under those conditions for any amount of time, be it 24 hours. However, these people have been doing it for years, and it has progressively gotten worse and worse. And to them, that's everyday life, and they don't see it any other way. There's a lot to be said about that. Something that I wouldn't fathom being able to live under those conditions. But
Arman,
these people are doing it on a daily basis.
And Arman, you've seen the situation on a number of missions fact-finding missions that you've undertaken, and quite frankly, having read and studied your reports, and these are points that you've been raising since the signing of the trilateral statement, the risks that are being posed. Again, despite having read them and studied them, when you see it, there is a little bit of a shock value, I have to say, and I'm not one that has kind of much emotional ups and downs, but I have to say it was shocking to see what we saw. My question is, with respect to the fact-finding mission, what I think for our viewers, it's probably important for them to understand why these take place, why fact-finding missions are done, what value you hope to deliver with these fact-finding missions, and finally, with this particular fact-finding mission, what has been the reception of the general public with respect to what we've discovered under your leadership and guidance in the field?
Karnig, thank you for this important question and for your comments. Well, actually, these fact-finding missions are crucial, very important, because the purpose is to show to the world what is in reality is happening. Because what is the purpose of Azerbaijan? Their purpose is to hide everything, like to appear in front of the international community, you know, as white, as very peaceful. But on the ground, we can see how what is the situation, the real situation. So they continue causing sufferings to our nation, and this I am very glad that the purpose of this mission specifically was to document evidence related, first of all, to the military attacks, armed attacks on September 13 and 14, when they invaded the territory of Armenia. There was an additional invasion, advanced, let's say, illegally. All of these facts give us, what is the value? The value is that all of these facts give us a unique possibility to form our recommendations, our assessments, which are based on real grounds, on real facts. So these are not just theoretical assessments or wishes or emotions. These are concrete facts, which confirm that, well, first of all, we have to highlight here several very important points, which derive directly from these facts. First of all, Azeri soldiers, all of these locations were installed in the vicinity of our villages, of our towns, on the roads as a result of war crimes, right? They appear there through war crimes, through atrocities. So now, after appearing there, they just turned into nonsense, the civilian life of our population, of our compatriots. They cause suffering. People are deprived of their family incomes. They are deprived of jobs. They are deprived of lands, pastures, grasslands, arable lands. Even Azeris in several places are present in the houses that belong to our citizens. Along with this, we have to connect all these facts with another group of facts, let's say with a different group of facts, which are very closely connected to this one. So these are facts on Armenophobia, on the hatred policies, because all these facts, whatever we have now, are very closely connected to those facts. And these are the results of the hatred and animosity policies of Azerbaijani authorities towards our nation. Apart from that, it is also very important to highlight the impunity. All of those soldiers that are present near our villages, all of them remain, as a result, although they commit their criminal acts or these war criminals, but they remain unpunished, unfortunately. And this is the entire picture that we have to show to the world, that these are not about only rhetorics. This is not about only, sometimes the speeches of the of authorities or their threats, but this is real suffering to our people that take place, unfortunately, on the ground. And it gives us a possibility to come up with a recommendation so that these people must withdraw their forces, so that our normal life of our people can be restored. And one more probably final remark is that we have to divide facts into two main parts. So the first group of facts refer to the invasions of Azerbaijani armed forces. Yes, they invaded territory of Armenia. There are several cases of incursions starting from May 2021. But we should not forget about all their locations that are in the vicinities of our villages and on the roads, on so-called alternative roads, because wherever they're present, from there they have under target our communities, our villagers, their houses, their buildings. And that is why the president of Azerbaijan very recently was threatening Armenia several days ago, literally, saying that we have under our target communities of Armenia, and moreover, they are located on all strategic areas, having under their target hydroelectric power plants, tailing dumps, and this kind of things, which is a strategic problem for the even threat for the security, a national security issue, real national security issue.
Thank you, Arman. I want to ask first. I want to emphasize how grateful I really am to our friend Patrick. Thousands and thousands of photographs, changing lenses, to meet the requirements of the nature, if you will, and the elements and the climate changing throughout the day, sunny, not sunny, cloudy, sprinkling rain, etc. But also the many hours of video footage, many hours of video footage, and putting it all together. My question to you, Patrick, is, while we saw with our naked eyes the enemy looking at us, I remember in Kerkonian, we could hear them talking and getting closer. You had the added aid, if you will, the extension of the equipment that you had carried with you, and quite heavy equipment, I might add. And in you looking through that equipment, what can you tell us and our audience about the size of some of these locations, these posts, and the number of people milling about, coming in and out of the post and staring at us, and any other details?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. This was one of a life-changing experiences for me, because obviously I had not gone through there before. And thank you, Garo, Karnig, and Arman for taking us there. And I'll come back to that question. I want to give you more of I think everything has been emphasized by everybody about the situation, but to take it in more of a personal view of this, I think if I have to put one word to it, from not a foreigner, but if, from the outside spirit organization who's there, I think the word would be uneasy. Mm-hmm. is the feeling overall for the days that we were traveling. Yes, I got to capture a lot of imagery. So going to your questions about what is there, what I can see is the major buildup, the equipment that are there, and the scale of it. I mean, we were seeing Caterpillar big equipment on the top of the mountains, and how they got these equipments up there. So that's not a temporary position. That's not, trying to think more than just what's happening now, but what is happening there? So they're going there for the long run. I mean, I think it was in episode 1 or 2, we saw the giant road that they're building, and they have such heavy equipment there. Again, it was an uneasy feeling. One thing, of all these years I've documented via means of photography or moving images, the one thing that this time around, it's difficult to show someone who hasn't been there, hey, look at the situation. And I know you had some angry words in the beginning of this episode where you were like, how come this and that? Well, it's difficult unless you haven't been there to feel it, to feel the uneasiness of everywhere you go. And as you said, they can see you, and like besides we can see them, that they've been monitoring us going from city to city, and them being out with their guns in their hands and moving around, and we're there documenting it. I'm there with my big lens taking photos and stuff like that. And it would take a heartbeat for them just to throw a shot out there. So yes, it wasn't like, I don't think anybody had fear in their eyes, but everybody had that uneasy feeling, because everywhere we went, and boy, we went somewhere where literally across the street was an Azerbaijan flag. So it was very, very uneasy. And I wanted to take a few days when I came back, and everyone's, hey, how was it? I was like, I was really heartbroken. And I've been to Armenia a few times, and this one was very heartbreaking. And people didn't understand why. And then I kind of got lost in all the videos that we were, trying to put together for the last few weeks. And I'm not saying it made it worse, but it definitely, it haunts me. And it's very uneasy right now. And that's why I can't say like, hey, how come nobody can understand these words that we've been trying to say from episode to episode to episode, the same thing. Imagine you're just going to the market and you're driving by a road and there's posts and there's people there with guns who have historical, I don't know. I'm just, hatred. I guess I didn't want to go that drastic, but hatred. And at this point, it feels like they could take any shots they want. And because we hear about them, we heard about shots weeks before we got there. And a few days after we left there, we heard about random shots. So, they don't care. There's nobody really to report to. If anything, I don't know if they get complimented on doing that or not. So it's that uneasy feeling of living there. And we talk to people, like as you mentioned earlier, who live there with not just great spirits, but they're like, we're not leaving here. And I'm like, oh my God, we have to leave here as soon as possible, because it's just like, it was very claustrophobic and uneasy.
That's one way of putting it. Claustrophobic. Uneasy is another. It's something that, oddly enough, Mr. Tatoyan, my dear Arman, you've been doing it for quite some time. You have gone to these front lines over and over again. From the 44-day war of Artsakh and as far back as the 4-day of 2016, when you were first on the roll of the Human Rights Defender of the Republic of Armenia as far back as 2016. I'd like to know what's next for us, because the gentlemen on the screen that are with us, I know that they're going to be up for our next mission when Tatoyan Foundation concludes and completes the work that's being done to put together everything that we gathered, to present it to various venues and various directions for it to be headed for. What's next for Arman Tatoyan and Tatoyan Foundations, and what are your thoughts on these fine gentlemen stepping up and coming with us all the way there?
Garojan, unfortunately, there are so many violations that require that just one mission is not sufficient, unfortunately. And we have to continue our activities. And because every day there are new facts, every day, each and every day, starting from shootings, ending up with invasions, causing suffering, socioeconomic problems to our population. So we have also in Syunik many areas still to visit, and we discussed in Syunik this issue when we were there, in other regions. And yes, when we finalize the report, when we come up with our recommendation and submit them to international organizations and publish them, I think then we will be ready to discuss the next, let's say, mission and the directions. Karojan, and I wanted to say that what is, and Karnig also asked this very important question. So what is the value of these assessments, of these missions? One of the main purposes, probably the biggest one, is to show to the international community what is the real situation on the ground, and not to allow Azerbaijani authorities to falsify the reality, not to allow them to falsify the facts, because they use as a curtain their so-called peace-building intentions, but in the reality on the ground, they continue these violations, which are based on their policies, which is in itself an internal tool for them to stay in power. So that is why these policies will not end. Apart from this, many people now talk about so-called peace agreement or agreement. So if at least this mission proved again another time that if this document is signed or whatever, I don't know the date, the title even of this document, even the content is not released, I don't think that this will be a real document that will provide peace, will bring peace to us. Of course not, because we could see ourselves that these Azeris are only strengthening their positions in their locations. Even, for example, in Jermuk, they even have all the preparations for winter. The same is in Syunik. And well, I wonder, and every day their president continues their threats. So I wonder who is that person, that naive person, that would think that Azeri intentions are to make peace, are to live in peace with our nation. Of course not. And these policies are not only directed against Armenia, but also against Artsakh, because this is against Armenianism. And this is the entire logic of their policies, which would have to show to the world so that they do not think theoretically and become victims of Azerbaijani falsified policies and the politicians, but in reality to take action that will make the population of Armenia and civilians live in peace and feel secure, and rather living in insecurity and uncertain situation.
Thank you, Arman. And I think that one other important bit of this, quite frankly, I was just reflecting as you were speaking. The European Union's mission to the border regions was coterminous with ours. I mean, as we were finishing up our mission, apparently the European Union mission was getting started. And I think the other valuable part of these fact-finding missions is essentially to fact check what third parties are saying about what is happening at the borders. And I think, the report that the Tatoyan Foundation puts out is going to be instrumental in making sure that what the European Union said it saw is actually what it saw, because there are, 6 sets of eyes here that saw quite a bit. And if some of these issues don't make it into their report, there are going to be quite a number of questions. And Patrick, when you were talking about the incidents that were occurring while we were there, I think we can all remember when we were in Nerkinhan and the explosion of the mine, the incident with the mine and the loss of fortunately only cattle, which had occurred, and there was a rush to address that issue from the village. So it's I think your language uneasy was perfect. I think that things were tenuous. We felt that balance, that things were not settled, and therefore unsettling. And I want to thank really this team of. I want to start by saying this team of professionals, because really we learned a lot from each of you. I mean, tremendously a lot from each of you as we were going from place to place, observing and studying what was happening. But even beyond a team of professionals, I have to say a team of brothers, because I think what we witnessed changed a bit of all of our lives. And of course, Arman, I don't even know how to thank you for the leadership on, the groundbreaking work, number one, but also the leadership in putting together this fact-finding mission, and really assembling a team of true professionals that really, I have to say, at every turn outdid themselves and went beyond the call, beyond any call. I mean, there were, sleepless nights, obviously, that's just the beginning of it. But the demands, physically, emotionally, and time resources were just tremendous. And I just want to thank each of you for joining us on this fact-finding mission. And I also want to say, before I kick it over to Garo for his final comments, that we do have an intention to put, with Patrick's help, to put these episodes together in a full-length documentary evidencing the fact-finding mission from beginning to end. for obviously for fact-finding purposes, for historic purposes, as well as to kind of give viewers that did not get a chance to watch one or two of the episodes, at least a feeling of continuity about how it started and where we ended and the impact of that. So thank you very much again, brothers. You really outdid yourselves in professionalism and patriotism, and I don't know how else to thank you. Garo?
Thank you, Karnig. Well, let me start by saying that Arman, you lead by example, and it was your example that motivated Karnig and I to accompany you on one of your many, many fact-finding missions, which this was one of. And as for the three brothers that have joined us, Oshin, Patrick, and Ruben, they will forever remain examples of put your money where your mouth is, and if you want to talk the talk, walk the walk. And they walked the walk. They walked the walk. Every one of us have day jobs, responsibilities, families, children. Some of us have parents, some of us have one parent, and we have many things as everybody else does. And for these three gentlemen to become what I believe they became on this trip is no less than what I became on this trip. I became a slightly better version of myself, perhaps. I became slightly more understanding and empathetic to the plight of those in those regions and villages that we visited. And Arman, know this, that when you undertake a mission, you will always have people like us and many others who have reached out to Karnig and I wanting to be part of your next fact-finding mission and accompany you and accompany us if we are fortunate to be part of it. Now, let me come back full circle about European fact-finders that followed us in those regions, and some were in Chermuk when we weren't in Chermuk, and some were in Syunik when we left Syunik. I can only say this: they are no less objective than we are, but we are no less objective than they are. Yes, true, our last names end with IAN or YAN, but what you see, with your own naked eyes cannot be denied. And what we saw gave me at once cause for pause, but also gave me a hope for hope, if you will, because of the resiliency. The people that we do not have on with us at this moment, one for health reasons, the other one because of a pressing commitment, and two others who were also on the ground with us in different regions. Those folks were incredible martu desakner, as we say in Armenian. And I'm always going to be grateful to them, and I hope to see them again soon, because I don't know how one can go to any part of Armenia and leave, and then when they return, they don't go visit that part of Armenia again. Armenia is a beautiful country. Yerevan is a beautiful capital of the Republic of Armenia, but Armenia is so much more than Yerevan. And so much more than Yerevan resides outside of Yerevan, with all of my love to my friends in Yerevan. Peace. Okay, finally, let me close with this. What I saw there is not sufficient for peace. The prerequisite for peace must be the withdrawal of these troops from Armenian territories to locations that is at such a safe distance that folks should not feel uneasy, as Patrick said. Folks should not feel claustrophobic, as Patrick said, in their own villages, in their own cities, towns, and on their own roads. The people of Syunik deserve peace. The people of Artsakh deserve peace. And they deserve a bit more of our attention, the same way that Patrick, Ruben, and Ocean gave a bit more of their time and therefore their attention. I call on everybody hearing, listening, to give a bit more of their attention in whatever way, in however means, and whatever forum, joining an organization, assisting an endeavor, or doing something all by your lonesome if you have to. I don't know, I could say happy Thanksgiving to those in the United States, but what I really want to say is peace and prosperity to the people of Syunik, peace and prosperity to the people of Artsakh, peace and prosperity to the Republic of Armenia and its inhabitants. Arman Tatoyan, Patrick Poulatian, Oshin Pirumian, Ruben Musherian, for Karnig and I wish you a pleasant evening, happy holidays, and Frontlines will return. We'll decide with what, with who, and for what reason in the days ahead. Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen.